By the way, Quaker men were also accused of sorcery and other unholy acts, and there was even a ballad about a Quaker man having sex with a horse while the devil watches, and, well, maybe I'll cover centaurs in a future video. The thunder of hooves combined with the war cries of men. That was the terrifying reality for many an ancient soldier facing a cavalry charge, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that humans would come up with the man-horse hybrid creatures known as centaurs. That's one of the reasons behind the origins of these common fantasy creatures, which most people assume to have a Greek origin, due to their prevalence in ancient Greek myths. They're actually much older than that, and exhibit a number of qualities that go beyond their physical form. These too have a distinct source, as we'll soon see. But that's putting the cart in front of the horse, man, thing. Let's just start with the origins of the centaur in ancient myths, and work our way forward from there. The concept of human-animal hybrids dates to prehistoric times, to Neolithic cave paintings dating back 20,000 years. These paintings might not represent a belief in a literal hybrid creature, but instead the notion of a human shaman taking on animalistic traits during ceremonies. The ancient Mesopotamian Ur-Malulu, which means untamed lion man, is a being with the top half of a human and the bottom half of a four-legged beast, and might represent the earliest notion of what we'd vaguely call a centaur. Some of the first known images of what could definitively be called centaurs come from ancient Assyria and Babylon, dating to the latter half of the 2nd millennium BCE, a few centuries before the flowering of Greek culture and art. The centaur found enduring fame when it was adopted by ancient Greeks. A terracotta statuette found in the village of Lefkandi in Greece dates to around 900 BCE and is one of the oldest representations of the creature in Greek art. Wherever they came from, centaurs developed a unique mythos and origin story in Greek art and literature, cementing their place in the collective human consciousness for thousands of years. According to one myth, King Ixion of Thessaly was invited to dine with the gods on Mount Olympus. During the feast, he got a little too friendly with Hera, who was both Zeus's sister and wife. Frankly, if you're married to your sister, I don't know that you've got a right to complain about someone else getting frisky with her. But on the other hand, Ixion probably should have known better than to mess with the king of the gods. Zeus created a nymph named Nephele out of a cloud to look like Hera, whom Ixion mistakenly seduced. Their child was a man named Centaurus, who was so wild that he mated with mares and thus created the first centaurs. Other versions of the story paint Centaurus as the prototypical centaur himself, owing to his mixed divine-human heritage, or as the child of the god Apollo and another nymph named Stilbe. These two had another child, a twin brother to Centaurus named Lepithes. His descendants, the Lepiths, fought a great battle against the centaurs, called the Centauromachy. This event was preceded by the wedding of the Lapith king Pirithous, who was said to be a son of either Zeus or Ixion. At the feast, the centaurs became drunk and violent, and attempted to carry off the bride and the other women at the feast. The great hero Theseus was in attendance and led the battle, in which many of the centaurs were killed. With few exceptions, centaurs were portrayed in myths as wild, unruly, barbaric, and violent. There's likely a good reason for that, as we'll soon see. The Greeks, like the Assyrians and Babylonians before them, were often troubled by nomadic tribes to their north. Like the later Huns and Mongols, these people made extensive use of horses in warfare, and early interactions with mounted riders likely spawned the myth of the centaur. In her book, The Centaur, Its History and Meaning in Human Culture, Professor Elizabeth Atwood Lawrence wrote, "In war, horses conferred great advantage. Early pedestrian peoples, terrified by equestrian enemies who easily defeated them, were likely among the first to perceive a mountain rider as one creature. Even in relatively recent times, when the Native Americans were confronted by the Spanish conquistadors, the natives were convinced that the fierce warriors were a new composite animal. In the same way that dinosaur bones were sometimes thought to have belonged to dragons or other mythical creatures, it's also possible that people who found graves of a warrior buried along with his horse visualized the combined bones as one creature. As for centaurs' penchant for drunkenness, violence, and lust, that may also be due to the perception of so-called barbarians on the edges of more civilized lands. The story of King Pirithous and the centaurs could be a direct allegory for raids by mounted riders, who captured and enslaved Greek women. Centaurs were often associated with the Greek god of wine and revelry, Dionysus, further cementing their reputation as wild and unmanageable. Dionysus was said to be tutored by one of the few good centaurs, Chiron, who was sometimes depicted as having human forelegs and wearing clothes, in stark contrast to his more animalistic brethren. He was sired by the Titan Cronus and a nymph, and, along with Dionysus, tutored many of the greatest Greek heroes, such as Jason and Achilles. It's possible that Chiron represented the ability, rare as it may have been, for non-Greeks to leave behind their barbarian nature and become members of so-called civilized society. The notion of hybrid beings that are a mix of humanity and something else has endured through the centuries and is still with us today. Shapeshifters like werewolves, humanoid monsters like vampires, and characters like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personify the dual nature of human and beast. But perhaps the modern creation that most resembles centaurs is the cyborg, a human that has had mechanical parts grafted onto him or her. Like centaurs, cyborgs tend to be instantly recognizable as such, and are often swayed by their inhuman nature, sometimes to the point of violence. Even good cyborgs can run afoul of computer viruses or hackers and commit evil acts, mirroring the centaurs at Perseus' feast, who only became violent when their brains were hacked by alcohol. Just like how horsebound raiders represented a new paradigm in ancient life and warfare, cyborgs entered the public consciousness in the 19th and 20th centuries, when regular life was being upended by new technologies. Perhaps we see cyborgs in the same way ancient peoples saw horse-riding nomads, human to a degree, but representing strange and sometimes frightening changes, so it's inevitable that stories sprang up around them. Maybe we're not so different from our ancient ancestors after all. Thank you so much for watching this video about the origins of centaurs. It had been in the back of my mind ever since I joked about doing it in my video about witches a couple Halloweens ago, and I finally decided to get around to it. If you liked it, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos about the history of fantasy. Until next time, if you happen to meet a centaur, don't ask them to take you for a pony ride. They hate that.